Final Show podcast, the show that helps you upgrade your life personally and professionally and helps provoke your mind to think clear, concise, and different. One of our favorite quotes of the show is, "You are born an original. Please do not die a copy." I have two of the most incredible, balanced, loving, crazy, dreamers, practical, the whole nine. Their names are Kass and Mike Lazerow. I'm going to let them actually introduce themselves a little bit because their story is so diverse, and the fact that they're husband and wife, also business partners, also mom and dad. First of all, welcome to the show and welcome home, you both.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank your son for that really awesome, cute promo, by the way.
Yes.
Love this.
Yes. My son, Dejan, he's all over this interview. He's in school right now. I said, you know what? You can skip the school if you need, because I think this would be more educational for you, but he's got a field trip, so he's pretty excited about that.
Got it.
Bring him to New York City. He's a superstar, and we want to work with him in the future. So let's get it set up early.
And he was happy about that because I showed the DM, Mike, of you saying, "Hey, man, this guy's a stud." And, you know, when kids are that young, I really try to pull him into what mom and dad do for a living and really try to get him understanding that. And so I showed him your videos, and then I said, okay, we're going to read the book, and then dad's going to do an interview with them. And so he really understood how that all kind of worked out. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, I'll kick off the intro. So
please.
My background is, I think I'm a little bit of a relic here. So I started off in, I would say, the late 90s at the interactive arm of Leo Burnett, which was basically building websites for big brands. And I had the idea to start golf.com because I was an avid golfer, as is Mike. And there was really nothing for recreational golfers. So that was my kind of big first jump into entrepreneurship. Previously, I had started an interactive arm of a law firm who was building websites for lawyers, which was, not really revolutionizing anything, but they paid big bucks. So that was good. And then, in terms of what Mike and I do, I'm all about operations, marketing, HR, people, anything that really has to do with moving the company forward. Mike, you go now.
Yeah, so Mike Lazerow, I am the second half of Kass and Mike. Kass is the first because she does everything and I get all the credit. She's the operator. I am more of the salesperson, product, raise money, come up with these crazy ideas, at least 10 a day or more. And we met in 1996 at a wedding. I was very nervous. I asked her to dance with me. To her credit or discredit, she said yes, and the rest is history. We connected over the internet, launched a company while we were dating, and we've been entrepreneurs and investors ever since.
I want to kick this off really, really quick. First of all, I watched an interview where you guys were talking about giving birth and the idea for the business. And Mike, literally, you blurted out talking about Kass's birth canal. But then, because I don't want to give too much of the book away, in the book there was a little small detail about how you proposed in an email format. So my mind, as soon as I read that, said, okay, his comment about the birthing canal made total sense now.
Well, it was a different time. It was a different time. It was, email we weren't buried by email. It was still a communication device at the time, 1999, that hadn't been ruined by spammers and by all of the trash that gets sent through it. And so we spent the first year apart. And so a big part of our relationship was email and the landline. Remember that? The phone that plugged into the wall.
A real phone that was plugged in.
And I also am very conflict averse. And so rather than asking her to marry me, I emailed her. And like Kass, it took her about half an hour to get back because she responds to emails exactly in the order they came in. So my proposal was beneath about 30 other emails. She finally said yes, and we signed the deal October of that year. I didn't want too much time to go by for her to get cold feet, and here we are on the Ryan Holtz show, so we're excited.
Well, I appreciate you. Listen, I mean, first of all, I want to get to the book, but I think what is really interesting about this, first of all, this is the first husband and wife I've ever had the pleasure of interviewing that have grown a really major business. Second of all, my wife and I run our businesses. And so, there's this kind of fly on the wall where you're thinking, hey, who can we go and start, bouncing ideas off of? We have 2 young kids. We're constantly in this kind of like scarcity of like, okay, wait a sec. We want to make sure that we're there for our kids, but then we got the business that's going. And I mean, reading this book gave me a little bit of like, it's flashbacks, a little PTSD happening there. And then, you guys really, what I love about the book is that you made it very aware that you said, hey, look, living present day right now, we wish we would have kind of stopped, smelled the roses a little bit. You did allude to the fact that, hey, we did miss out on some of our kids' upbringing and things like that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. I'll start by saying, any entrepreneur that really, understands the struggle knows that there's going to be sacrifices, right? There's going to be massive, massive sacrifices. And as a result of those sacrifices, that can mean friendships, relationships, your health, your mental health, your physical health, and your family. And it's not for the faint of heart, I can tell you that. And, we definitely, easy to look back, right? Hard in the moment. But when we look back, I think we did our best. I don't think we missed, the big moments, the big, the plays at the school and the, music rehearsals and things like that and the recitals. But we did miss a lot of the little moments. So that's tough, and you got to be ready for that because there's no balance.
Wow. Mike, what would you say to that?
So, we have a shared life, but Cass definitely did more of the kid stuff because I was sales and I was on the road a lot. And there were years where I literally don't remember really meeting our kids, let alone their teachers and everyone in our lives. And they were young. And so I think what we learned is that when your kids are really young, you got to provide them love. You got to keep them alive. But it's really when they're older that the problems get bigger, right? Once like they start dating, and especially in New York City, right? Like every corner you have an alcohol store, drugs, like, so you really have to like button it up, right? And so a big part of why we stepped back a little after my Salesforce stint was, the kids were now middle school, high school. I don't think we felt that we had done the best we could. I don't know if any parent does, but if you're an entrepreneur, there's this constant battle between the company and your other commitments. If you want to have kids, we don't think that you have to have kids, but if that's a priority, have them young and just know that you're not going to be 100% present. Fast forward, I think what we've realized with one of our sons launching a business very soon, they pay attention to your actions. They don't pay attention to your words. So anything I tell my kids goes right through one ear, out the other. And it goes out the other, not into another kid's ears. It just leaves. However, they are studying how you treat people, what you prioritize, your values, how you work, not just how much, but like how we work. So everyone we worked with, the kids got to know, right? Like I think Gary Vaynerchuk talks to our oldest son more than we do. Like they're genuinely friends because we were building businesses together and he was over for Sunday brunches and we kind of grew up together, our kids, right? And so be very careful as an entrepreneur, even if you're not there, to really think about what is the act that you're modeling. And we think there's nothing more virtuous than like honest hard work, which is a big part of why we wrote the book.
I had this conversation about a year ago, which was really interesting. And a lot of people, we were kind of talking about parenting and entrepreneurship. And so a lot of people say, look, a lot of parenting is caught and not taught, meaning kind of going to your point, Mike, of like, hey, you can talk all you want, but talk is cheap. Actions kind of, speak louder, right? But kind of filtering into the aspect of, do we as entrepreneurs and parents bring our kids into the business, help them to understand what we're doing on a daily basis? Because when we go to schools and we say, okay, mom and dad are going to come for career day, it's amazing how we go give the presentations and I'm like, okay, guys, raise your hands if you know what mom and dad do for a living. And it's amazing how many kids do not know what mom and dad do for a living. So what would you guys say to, parents that are like, no, we want to keep all that business stuff kind of separate. And then we want them to kind of have like, did you guys do that? Or was there, some chaos in the middle?
There's definitely chaos. I think the life of an entrepreneur, especially if you're a parent, it's constant chaos. You are in the middle of the storm at all times. And to be honest, if there is no feeling of being in a storm, you better be ready because it's about to drop. So I don't know what to say to parents who don't bring their kids into what they do, because I think life is messy. And I think if you want to live authentically, they need to see the mess, the gritty hard work, the disappointments, the failures. And I think that's important, as well as Mike said, to model, but also to explain. So our kids have always known what we do, and they're with us in the good times and bad. I think as a result, they're a little more empathetic to when things are not going well, because I think they see how hard we work.
It's interesting too, because reading a little bit of the book, I like how you guys kind of started it, because you said, hey, look, we're not going to lie and say that, we come from families and we were broke, impoverished, on the streets.
Nope.
You said, to be honest, on all accords, came from, upper middle class families, but there was a couple twists in that. Mike, your parents divorced early, age 6. Very interesting. Cass, you had parents, but you said, my mom, that was a whole different issue.
Yep.
I think there was a lot of things going on there. And then kind of, there's a little part where you mentioned, I don't know if it's your mom or your dad, but your mom or dad basically said, Cass, why can you not just like stop being who you're kind of being and figure that out? And you said in that moment, you kind of thought about it and thought, I don't think there's anything wrong with me, but there could be something wrong with you
her.
a little bit.
Yeah.
So how has that impacted your journey?
Well, what's interesting is as people who suffer from any kind of mental health issue, and I suffer from anxiety, and there's massive depression that goes through our family. And I know that's what my mom struggled with. And if you think about that, there was not the same kind of choices and medications and therapy back then. But, I think that was like a turning point, a pivot for me, even though I remember being about 7 or 8 years old. I remember it was a core memory, thinking like, this isn't me, this is her. And I think it also made me realize that, not everybody is going to be put together, right? And I think there was some empathy there. I think it also taught me about how I wanted to raise my own family, and also how I wanted to treat others, right? And coping skills, right? Like I grew up kind of, I think, developing different coping skills than a lot of people, and probably earlier than most people. And I think that's definitely served me well.
Do you think that the way you are, where Mike is like, hey, bro, let's drink some liquid death and it'll be okay, we'll figure all that detailed stuff out later. And you're like, whoa, let's rewind all that back. And we got to figure out some of that detailed stuff now, because there's, a few long-term consequences. Do you think that you being as punctual and, organized, like I'm looking at Mike's background, he's got, I don't know what he's got on his wall. You got a calendar. The moment somebody shows me they got the calendar and the board, I'm like, they're telling me exactly who they kind of are, maybe.
I love this.
But do you think that has,
I think it was
kind of been a coping mechanism?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was a coping mechanism of control, and I think also, thankfully, my dad got us into sports. So he was a big basketball player, but he taught us tennis, and I actually had quite good skills, and that became a saving grace, because when you actually move and do something, as everyone knows who struggles with anxiety, it actually helps. And so when you're only thinking about one thing at a time, i.e. tennis for me, for those couple hours, that was really therapeutic for me. So yeah, and I think the coping mechanism was, how do I sit in chaos and make sense of it and move forward? And some of those coping skills that people learn from their family of origin, don't work well in the personal world. But what I found, because I had to adjust a lot, and Mike can agree with that, but what I did find is how you cope with it in the workforce actually really does work.
Interesting. And Cass, another thing too, what I wonder is that you going, because we'll get into the golf.com, but golfing, as you said, very male dominated.
Big time.
Very Caucasian dominated.
Yeah.
Before Tiger came into the mix.
Yep.
Before Tiger came into the mix. How did you kind of navigate those waters? But Mike, before Cass answers, I want your perspective, being the male kind of in that industry, and then kind of watching your wife / aka business partner navigate through that.
Yeah, so first of all, anyone who knows Cass knows that she's tough as balls. She's one of the toughest women, people I've ever met, and compassionate. So she has this kind of ability to see clearly, to say tough things to people. When Cass lets someone go, they all say thank you. they've learned something. They feel like they're more self-aware. When I let someone go, they usually end up with a raise and a better title because I'm conflict adverse. But it's hard for me to kind of communicate tough stuff with those emotions. And so Cass is someone who has had to navigate a world of brothers who are tough on her and business world of men, right? Especially when we grew up, like we didn't have as much kind of awareness about how systems and institutions and organizations treated people who weren't white and male differently, which they did. Even investors we'd go and pitch, they would think that she was like, without knowing her name, like my assistant, right? I'm like, oh, no, she is not. Like I am, if anything, I work for her, right? And so, but all of this comes from like a childhood that we're the most blessed people in the world. We could afford it. Parents could afford education and food and like one vacation a year. And it shaped us through the trauma we experienced. So for Cass, it was her family dynamics. And for me, it was a divorce and a father who suffered with mental health issues and ended up in a mental hospital for a few weeks. And all of that mishigas kind of forms you. And I wouldn't change anything. Even now, like we are in the greatest country, despite our, attempt to pressure test how great. And the opportunity was there. If we'd been born in any of the other 200 countries, it just would have been different.
I like that. Cass?
I mean, I agree. I agree with everything Mike said. And, my dad, I have to say this truthfully. So I'm 5.5 years younger than my closest sibling in age. So when my dad was a managing partner, he actually got more time back. It sounds odd because he's managing like 8,000 people across the globe, but he actually, was able to teach me so much. And one of the things that he did, because he was a different parent to me because he got that time compared to my siblings, is he just told me to stand up. Like, you are no different. He actually said things like, you are better and smarter than all these people out there. Don't let any man say differently. I mean, I have a memory when I was 6 years old that he gave me boxing gloves to teach me how to defend myself against my brothers when they were roughhousing with me. So he was like this incredible, like, just person who brought such like clarity, and there was no doubts that were allowed to come in, because he was just like, no, like, you can compete with anybody. It doesn't matter. And that definitely helped, because in the golf industry, like Mike said, it's a bunch of white men in baggy pants going around being incredibly chauvinistic. And, I fought my way through. You have to have tough, thick skin. But, like Mike said, I wouldn't change it. We're very blessed.
I love that. Shoveling shit. I know you got the shoveling shit day with Gary Vee on the 14th April. Rich Antonello, hey, Complex, man, he built a massive company there.
Yep.
Because I'm so curious, because every time you guys get a good idea, it seems like it's either on the toilet, in an operating room, off a bridge, I don't know where it is. Where was the moment, if it was, isolated to one, that you said, we have to write a book? Or was this a composite of like sticky notes and little journal entries throughout the years of your journey?
It was definitely the latter. We had thought about a podcast, and I think we both realized that it was going to be a lot of work. And I had actually kept a list on notes in, my computer of all the things that we say and all the lessons that we teach, and over the last 30 years. So it really, we started the book and wrote it and completed it in 3 months. I'm not talking about like final edits and things, but like we did that in 3 months because we already had the information. It was just about having stories that go around it. So I don't know if it was just one moment or not. I think I had to convince Mike to do it, and he might never do it again because it's a lot of work. But I think our goal was to help as many entrepreneurs out there, and also, wake up the VC industry to what it's really like to be an entrepreneur, because you are really, really stressed all the time.
Do you think writing the book, the process, because you guys alluded to the fact that you didn't stop and smell the roses along the way, do you think that those little notes and stuff like that, as you're writing the book in the last 3 months, kind of, put a pin in some of those moments where you guys were like, wow, wait a sec, what did that feel like? Or, oh, I remember that moment. Like, was there any aha moments? Was there any crying? Was there any tears? Was there any, I want the good stuff. I want you to spill the tea for me here.
Mike, I think Mike has more tea than me because I have like a memory that's always attached to emotions. So I always can remember things based on how I feel. But Mike, what would you say to that? Do you like, I know you kept telling me you were surprised about the stories.
Yes. So it was very emotional. I don't know if it's a guy thing, but I hadn't filed a lot of the memories away in a place I could easily recall them. So they came back, but many of them hit me hard. And one of the ones that really hit me hard was the day we announced the sale of Buddy Media to our employees. And we were working at the time in Soho, and we rented a ballroom next door at a hotel that used to be called the Trump Hotel. That name's been stripped from it. And I walk into the ballroom, and just there's a standing ovation. And we have the video, which was on Facebook, and this overwhelming sense of like joy from hundreds of people. Right, because we're now a company that's growing fast, 50 million plus in ARR after 3 years, and I felt numb, and I didn't feel the joy because one of our kids was having some challenges. I was 40 pounds overweight. I was traveling the world. We had offices in Singapore and London, and I was always on the road. Cass and I weren't incredibly connected because we just weren't around each other, even though we were working together. And we had a series of appointments for one of our kids the following day, and I just felt worn out. I felt worn down. I felt that this joy just wasn't worth it, right, in many ways. And when we wrote the book, I went back to that moment. But what I realized is that when you do these companies, when you just build your life, it's a series of making the right decisions every day, which lead to good weeks, which lead to good months, which lead to good quarters, which lead to good years. And if you find something you like to do and do it long enough, right? We've been doing this stuff for 30 years. Buddy Media was very quick. It was only 5 or 6 of those years. You can look back and say, like, I have no idea how I got all this stuff done, but it compounds on itself. And I think writing the book let us finally step back and say, you know something? We have built a life worth living. How can we help other entrepreneurs who are shoveling shit today create their love story, and specifically the love story for their life of a life worth living? And so it was emotional. I cry a lot. The
I love that, man.
Ice woman over
I got
here,
you,
not
man.
so much.
I got you, man. I'm with you, Mike. Cass is like my wife. She's like, listen here, Ryan. You got 24 hours to get over this shit, and then we got to come up with a plan. That's the rule in our house. 24 hours. Sorry to interrupt.
We were just on a plane. And I was reading a book, and I started bawling when it ended. It really hit me hard. And Cass turns to me, she's like, "Stop crying! What's going on?" And so, I feel things, and I forget things, and when memories come rushing back, that's when, I was overwhelmed in many ways at what we had built. And we think that what we've done is no different than if you're running a pizzeria or a hair salon or an accounting firm or anything. A lot of our friends are entrepreneurs, and they shovel shit. They learn to love it if they're good at what they do, and they build a life that is much better than punching the clock and sitting behind a desk. It's where they find their purpose.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Cass. No, go ahead, Cass.
I was going to say, I can give you a little tea about when we wrote the book together. I always say that Mike and I don't have a lot of conflicts unless we kind of go in the same lane. And when we work together, we're in totally different lanes. Parenting is always the hard part for us because, you do it together. But writing the book was hard because we were in the exact same lane, critiquing each other's work. It wasn't like, Cass, do this, or do this. So that was hard. That was hard for us.
There's actually parts of the book that it's weird because you guys kind of open up, and I think it's really smart because you're like, hey, I don't want to talk about ourselves in third person or first person, but I'm going to explain to you why this is going to happen. But there's parts of the book that I can feel that either you were telling Mike to be quiet or Mike was telling you to not be so serious, because there would be little parts where you were sharing each other's stories, but I could feel like a little overlap. And then definitely there was some editing there because I'm like, I could just see this kind of going virtually. It's kind of cool to watch because I don't think there's a lot of couples out there, again, that have raised kids, built a massive businesses, and then also wrote a book about it, which I feel like puts you guys in such a really rare space, which makes me excited to really talk to you both, because the first thing I thought was, where are we going to go with this? Because it's so dynamic, right? Could you speak, I guess, to the point of just, I guess, that stepping over and then knowing when not to step over, or correcting one another in a way that propels the goals, kids, and your marriage forward?
Mike, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, so we had to get into flow many times. And the good news about Cass is she's not passive aggressive. And so
I'm aggressive.
So it took us some time to figure out how to argue, how to communicate about differences. And it's no different than any other co-founder relationship. We have 100 investments, and we've worked with a lot of co-founders, and founder communication is one of the hardest things, and I think it's easier when you're married. We cut our teeth at a time when the business was small, things weren't going that great, the internet wasn't big, I'm talking about golf.com, and we just learned how to communicate differences and how to go to bed not angry. So you should be able to, if you're two thinking people, you're going to have arguments, you're going to disagree. You should be able to disagree without being disagreeable and be able to hug and go to sleep in a loving way, right? I'm not saying every night. There are nights I wanted to run away, and then I realize I got nowhere to go. She does everything for me. So I just walked right back in the house. But it's, it's just over time you learn how to communicate. And what I did, which was not healthy, which a lot of entrepreneurs do, is I shine the turd. I would talk about stuff that wasn't going well and try to frame it as something that was going well. And it would drive her nuts like crazy. And so I had to learn to be honest with myself so then I could be honest with her. And if you can kind of work on being self-aware and not shining the turd, which is so hard for those of us who are optimistic, right? Cass, what do you think?
I love all that you said. I also think that because we worked together after the first year of just dating apart, it really helped us to not take things personally or as personally. If he says something like, I hand him something in work and he's like, actually, I was looking at it, I wanted it this way and that way. Most people get offended, or they start to say, oh my God, what does that person think of me? I'm like, oh, okay, great. I just want to get you what you need so that this can move forward. And I think we've actually taken that kind of process and moved it to our family life and our marriage, which I think helps, because the amount of stuff that we do together and the amount of initiatives, giving back, so many things at once, I don't think people realize that we do so many things at the same time. And I think we can, because of that skill of not taking things so personally.
Interesting. When you look at entrepreneurs, like when I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, I kind of have two buckets for them. There's the buckets that are lazy ambitious, which I think are the most dangerous people, lazy ambitious people, or optimistically delusional. Do you find this? And what would you say has been your experience with dealing with like co-founders, like dreamers versus you're batshit crazy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. How have you, early on, how can you identify that?
So one of the skills my dad passed to me was this intuition of being able to figure people out within like 5 to 10 seconds. And it's really helpful when we meet, founders and we're doing due diligence. So I look for people who know what they don't know and are humble. And I can spot these lazy, ambitious ones who, incredibly arrogant, but really don't want to work that hard. And then, the optimistic ones, you have to be a little more careful with. There are going to be some great founders who are optimistic. They just have to be paired with the right operator. Like I look at Mike as being through and through optimistic. Like he hates if I say like this is not going to happen, right? And I am what he calls radically realist, like a radical realist. So I think the lazy ambition ones, those guys and gals have to go. Yeah. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurs in general are very optimistic. You can't do this without being optimistic. There's so much shit that's involved with businesses, right? Like you show up, and if you own a restaurant, your chef doesn't show up. Like you're locked out of your point of sale system, and you just have to go with it, right? Or the city comes and inspects, they find a rat in your, like anything can happen. At the same time, at least in the tech world, you have very educated people who could tell stories, and it gets dangerous for sometimes. I mean, I haven't even talked about this. I was a very early, I wouldn't say mentor, but had a relationship with Sam Bankman-Fried, and we ended up investing when the company was doing really well, personally, not through our fund, but I thought he reminded me of Zuck. He reminded me of like some of the entrepreneurs I've worked with. And it turns out that what he was missing was an ethical framework to keep him in bounds in a business that he didn't need to cheat, right? Like when we invested, the cash flow of the business was so significant that it warranted the valuation that he got. His ambition so far outstripped the reality of what he could do that it landed him in jail, right? Now, looking back, we beat ourselves up over like, what did we miss? But there's a craziness that you need to do this at a big level. There is a just drive you need. And a lot of entrepreneurs are weird, like me, right? So if we stop not liking entrepreneurs because they're weird, odd, different, what do we invest in, right?
It just gets, I always say money likes to be seduced, but I think entrepreneurship, there's a seduction with getting beat up every day. Like there's days I feel so good and I feel like I'm the best. And then other days I feel like I'm a piece of shit and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? This is like, I'm playing games with myself. There's this, you guys talked about the dichotomy of like one day is really great and then the next day is just terrible. And then questioning yourself why you're putting yourself through this. Well, you kind of feel like you should be in an insane asylum some days. And then you literally start crying because you're like, I don't know where to express these emotions and I don't want to commit a crime.
Right.
Because, you're just trying to get through. Like, how have you guys learned how to deal with that in a, I guess, shoveling shit kind of way?
So Mike kind of said it. And I think J. Cole has the song, there's beauty in the struggle and ugliness in the success, right?
Yo, you guys are too cool, man. You're quoting J. Cole wearing Nike Dunks, man. This is, okay.
But
all right.
And our oldest son has that tattoo on his arm, which is a reminder for him that he loves, to look at every day. The truth is, it's easy to look behind us, right? And be a Monday morning quarterback. That it is a beautiful thing because it gives you purpose and it gives you like a reason to get up, and you're going to get punched in the face probably every day. There's nothing, we found that when we work, there's nothing great that happens without something also awful happening in a business. And you have to be able to withstand that. And those that can withstand that chaos, that you called it a dichotomy, that yin and yang of like great and awful, are the ones who succeed. And that's how you find your purpose, because you're building and creating. And then the other part is you're learning. Right? The greatest things that entrepreneurs do is they learn on the fly, and they're always learning and iterating and teaching. And I think that's the seduction.
Wow. Mike, what would you say?
So I agree with everything she just said. And I also think that no one ever asks us about, like people are scared to talk about money. And no one in this whole time we've been kind of talking about our book has even asked us like, what changed with money? Do you like money? We didn't start out with money, right? But we can't talk about entrepreneurship without the money. And what I love is that it's miserable. It's not guaranteed, but if you do something long enough and you stay at it and you get good at what you do, there will be money to be made, both in income and at the end of the year or at the end of the road if you build something of value, right?
Mike, I got to interrupt for a sec. Would you agree with this statement of words I'm going to give you in the sequential order? Money is the clean exchange of energy. When I say that, what does that mean for you? If you say money is the clean exchange of energy.
Yeah. So I think what it means to me is that, entrepreneurs spend all this time building something, right? They're creating their diamond, which takes a lot of energy to turn coal into a diamond, right? Over many, 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 many years. And whether it's customers or a buyer of the business, they are exchanging their money for the energy you put in to build either the product or the company, right? Like Salesforce said, we could build a sales social marketing software. They could build anything, right? But we will pay them money and stock in exchange for all the effort they'd put in to build this thing. is better with money to a degree. And that degree is kind of, can you take care of your family? Do you have your health? Can you take care of your health? And what opportunities open up that you can do? So we've been buying companies, cash flow companies. We've been giving to Cycle for Survival and upping the philanthropic arm of our foundation. And all of this stuff fills our cup and is another job that we have to shuffle and is miserable. Right? Like, I don't like asking other people for money for Cycle for Survival, but I do it a lot. I don't like having to get on calls talking about what's screwed up with one of the companies we bought, but we've grown to love the experience of entrepreneurship, and it's what we do. Entrepreneurs need to find markets that will support the level of company they want to build, so it results in a financial security that they need to do what they want. Now, whether you have 100 million or a billion or 100 billion, I don't really think it matters from a happiness perspective. So it's to a certain extent. But I can tell you that the payoff of 30 years of having resources has made, I think, this next 50 years, I'm 50, I hope I have 50 more years left, so much more interesting and impactful and rewarding for not only us, but everyone who we touch.
This is huge. Cass, you're making so many different facial expressions as Mike's talking. Mike, you brought up a great point, though, is that nobody's asking you about the money. And this is I'm massive on financial literacy. I believe in it. I think it should be taught in schools at a young age.
Agreed.
My son knows how to read a stock sheet. He understands. I say, hey, we do every Wednesday, him and I do stock talk. So I say, if it's in red, what does that mean? If it's in green, what does that mean?
Right.
What would you say, Cass, to that? And why are people not talking to you about the money? Is it are they scared to bring it up? Is it something that's taboo? Is it not PR correct? Like, what do you think?
I think it's just awkward. I think it's just one of those topics that sometimes gets awkward. You know, when people, I know they think like, you know, what are you doing with all the money now? Things like that. And I think most people realize, and maybe one of the reasons they don't ask us is because we're the same people. We just have a little more comfort than others. And I think, and I hope that they see that we really give back, because we've been doing some incredible work with Cycle for Survival and MSK for 20 years. This isn't like, oh, we're just doing this, you know, once or twice. We've been doing the same thing for 20 years, raising personally millions, but also helping them to raise over $400 million, you know, to kind of beat rare cancer. But I agree with you, Ryan, like literacy, financial literacy should be taught. I mean, I can't imagine why it's not taught in middle school. You should know it by 9th grade. You know, one of the things my dad always said to me is take accounting in college, and I was petrified of it, and I never did it. So every single Father's Day, I send him a card that says, Happy Father's Day, I love you. P.S. You were right, I should have taken accounting. This is what we need. We need financially literate people. It's such an important skill, because I think it also teaches you also what kind of investor you are, meaning, are you a saver? Are you risky? Right? It talks to you about habits. And we're in a society right now, and we see this with, you know, not only our kids, but also our kids' friends, where everything's about betting. And, you know, without financial literacy, you have no idea what the value of money is, right? It's just, I get this, you know, I worked, I got this money, and I'm just going to go bet whatever, a couple $100 on something. That's a crisis that's going on. I think this betting that I see happening with all these older adult kids.
That's debt. You know, like, I mean, a lot of generations were taught that debt is bad.
Yeah.
I always disagreed with that. I'm like, oh, if you're going to use debt to go buy shoes and buy a whole bunch of garbage and cars you don't need and you got no money, that's bad debt. But if you're going to buy debt, if you're going to get some debt to make more money, that's a good debt.
Yeah.
Somebody you should connect with, I don't know if you've heard of him, John Hope Bryant. He's the largest African-American owner of residential single-family homes. And he's got a company called Operation Hope. You would love him. He's done very, very well. And now he makes it his mandate of going around preaching financial literacy.
Love that. You
know, through real estate and stuff like that. You can Google him after, Mike, or I'd send you a DM or something. But that's somebody you got to connect with, because he's really big on that. And he, you know, entrepreneur. But shoveling over, what a segue. Did you catch that?
Good.
I'm proud
Good
of
one, Ryan.
I'm proud of myself on that. Shoveling
Good.
over into asking, because what I find when I ask entrepreneurs or people who are investors or trying to get investment, you know, what makes a great ask? But I want to kind of ask, because Mike, you posted something on your Instagram the other day where you said, look, man, you're walking and you're like, you need to get uncomfortable. I'm about to go into something right now. I'm going to make an ask. It's probably going to get a no, but that's the reality of trying to get something you are. When do you know as an entrepreneur if you're not asking enough? Have you ever been on that side?
Yes. The hard part about are the asks. You know, it's just like dating. You have to just start asking.
Numbers game. Just start asking.
Well, before I almost died with all my heart surgeries and like artificial heart stuff, I was paralyzed. I couldn't ask a woman out. A girl at the time, I was like a kid. And I remember like literally starting to sweat before I asked Cass to dance. And at a certain point, it's like, you just got to do it. And I think the first time we raised money, it was like, well, we kind of need your help. And now when we raise money, it's like, I got the fucking best idea for you ever. You'd be a privilege to get it, right? Like, I'm offering an opportunity to make money. I'm not asking for money, right? The issue with most entrepreneurs is they're not willing to put in the time to build relationships.
Yeah.
And so it is very hard to ask a stranger to support you in any way. It's very easy to ask someone who you've helped out already, who knows you're a good person, who knows your values, who knows that you do what you say you're going to do. You know how many people are like, hey, I'll introduce you to this person that'd be interested in the book. Crickets, right? And
yes.
So when we say, the one thing I would leave everyone here is like, if you just do what you say you're going to do, you are better than 99% of the people in the world. And don't say it unless you're going to do it. So if you say you're going to do it, do it. If you don't, you've lost that person forever. And I think how we work with entrepreneurs, how we get back to entrepreneurs who we don't invest in, when we commit to stuff, why are we working so hard for this book? When we do something, we try to do it right. We commit. And so we're in a generation of, it's the good enough generation. I've done enough work. It's good enough. Like, do I really have to care about what's going on? Things are good enough. Whereas I think Cass and I were like, we want to build an epic fucking company. We want to be the best. We want to get on the New York Times bestseller list, even though we may not. Like, we want to win. And I think we see with a lot of younger people that it's like, yeah, it's good enough. The job's good enough. The relationship's good enough. I don't really want to find someone else, even though it's like a toxic relationship, right? And so move beyond good enough, because if it's good enough now, it's not going to be good enough in a year, and you're going to find yourself miserable, overweight.
Ooh. Cass, anything to add?
I don't think I have anything to add. I think you covered all the different topics there, and I wholeheartedly agree.
Okay, Mike, you said about building relationships in the ask. This, to me, is more important than the ask. And the reason I say that is people are on the internet saying, create relationships, create value, give relationships. We go back to the OG Gary Vee days, right? Let's 7 times and then make the ask. Let's jab, 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 jab. Give me an example for our listeners and our watchers of maybe in the last, 24 months, you or Cass or both, of like the smallest thing that somebody did that you felt like in the relationship kind of solidified it. And it doesn't have to be anything big, but just something small where you're like, that person's character is on point.
Yeah, well, the good news when you write a book is you know who your friends are. And you know who your friends aren't. And so there are people who have brought us in to speak to their companies and have bought books for their network that was kind of surprising, but they have earned a fan for life. Because no one who hasn't written a book understands how hard it is to sell these fucking books, right? Because all we want is people to read them. We also have people who we have made a lot of money for, who have said flat out that they don't buy books for their entrepreneurs. Okay, listen, I'm not going to criticize. Life's too short. I'm all about positivity. But that forever changes stuff. Now, people look at, a relationship with Gary, which we really love. And, he said yesterday on video that it's, this is the best book he's ever written about business and all this stuff because it's like captures his shoveling. But what people don't realize is we were 2 schmucks and he needed an office space. And he came in and I said, yeah, it's fine with me, but talk to this broad over here, right? Because she may say no. So we walked into Cass's office and Cass is like, yeah, I'll give this guy a break. Like, he seems a good guy, like genuinely. And so like that was just an act of like service to another entrepreneur that has made our life so incredible. We own a pickleball team with him. We've invested in his wine company. In VFriends, we are genuinely love each other and love to hang out, and our kids love him, right? And so we just realized early on, the more we give, the more we get. You can't see behind me on my wall. I have thousands of books that I bought from friends, right? That I haven't given out all of them yet. Just because, like, I want to support friends. And we did this when we didn't have money. So, you know, figure out how you're going to show up in the world. Not everyone has the resources to buy books or to buy stuff, but like everyone has the ability to help out. And so if you want to build a relationship, ask, even if it's the president of a company, CEO, someone who you think is of a higher position, how can I help you? Give me one thing I can do that'll make your life better. Well, I'm trying to understand AI. Could you help me? Done. Let's set up a half an hour meeting. I'm in and I'll help you do it. And do it. Like, you can't say that and not do it. That's the problem.
Oh, I like that. You guys in friendships, amongst the climb of building your business, you said, hey, look, I don't know that we did a great job of building like friendships with our kids' parents, so our kids' friends' parents. But when you look at that, and you guys have built monumental things. And so when you study the greats and you read their books, a lot of people say magic comes from being isolated. Because the way I see it is, even in our life right now, if I want to raise my kids and be the best super dad ever, and by the way, my sole purpose of becoming an entrepreneur when I was 18 was literally out of trauma, which was I lost my mom, who was a single mom when I was 13, of a heart attack in my arms, and my dad was never in my life. So that took me into playing sports, but then it also said, hey, Ryan, you want to be able to live this experience as a father. But I'm like, well, I'm never going to get that from my own dad. So I want to like curiously become the best father so that I can live that for the first time with my son. And so I thought about, what can you do for a career that will let that happen? Now, I'm not saying entrepreneurship is less hours, but it gives me the flexibility to say, no, I'm not going to do something between this time and this time because this matters more.
Exactly.
And so that to me is like, it was never about money. But of course I want to make money. I think money wants to be seduced. But it was just that freedom to be like, I just wanted my kids to look at dad. And even at my funeral, because sometimes I think of that, I'm like, I don't want any fancy thing. I just want my kids to say, my dad was a bad motherfucker. And he put the things that mattered the most as number one, you know? And so going to you guys in relationships and isolation, what would you say is something that you think might have been good? Because in the book you kind of alluded that, hey, maybe you guys could have did better. But looking back, do you think it was kind of necessary?
So I have a tendency to always look back. I think great operators look back and forward and back and forward. And so I think part of this was, do I think we could have done a better job? I think bandwidth is so limited emotionally as an entrepreneur. It's just so limited. And when you're taking care of other people, and when I mean other people, every employee, which really, it's a lot of therapy to everybody to get everyone moving in the same direction and to get the correct like managers and leaders. When you're doing that, do I think we could have done a better job with friendships? I wish we had. I'm just not sure if when you're so busy, and I have this theory, you can only do one thing great at a time. And I think there are just a lot of consequences as a result. And I wish I could have done things differently. Gosh, I wish. I think of friendships that we lost along the way, and it's sad,
Mike?
The only thing I'd add to that is, you also have to pay attention to the spouse relationship, whether you're married to your co-founder or not. Not having money isn't great. Having a bad relationship isn't great. Having bad health isn't great, right? We had a standing babysitter when we could afford it. Wednesday night and Saturday night, we would pay for her no matter what. We guaranteed her at least 3 hours of pay, even if we couldn't use her, because we wanted to lock that down and protect that time. Saturday during the day was kids' time. I'd get up, I'd go get pancakes, which is probably why I weighed 40 pounds more. And then we'd go somewhere in New York City. We'd hit golf balls at Randall's Island. We'd go to a museum. We'd go to the park. We'd meet Cass for lunch. And so we tried to pack all of our parenting into Saturdays, part of Sundays, but as the kids got older, they just wanted to watch football and not really spend time with us. And it's not a matter of quantity, it's quality. And if it's important to you, put it on the calendar, put it on your plate. We always talk about how you have one plate, imagine a dinner plate. You can only fit so much. So what's on your plate? And if it's not on your plate, get rid of it. And there's certain things on my plate that are not on Cass's plate. I would say 80% of it, we have a shared plate, but there's a me in addition to the we, which is, I think, very important.
Massive. I would say 2 points to that. Number one, I totally agree with you, Mike. I'm half Jamaican, so when it comes to my wife is the bomb, and she runs. But in Jamaica, we say she run things, right? She runs things, right?
Things. Yes.
Now, right? She runs things. And then number two to that, though, is that I do feel what you're saying is true. And you guys like hip hop, obviously, but there's that Wu-Tang song called CREAM, which is an acronym for calendars rule everything around me, right? So it's one of those things where I do agree with the time blockage. I want to be respectful of your guys' time because I know we only have so much. So I want you to just simply tell us why and who or what the goal is. Why do people need to get the book? And when they get the book, what is the goal that you have for them in reading this book? What is the crusade, the cause, and the whole reason you did all this work?
So for me, it was the 50 plus cheat codes, right? So we've written down 50 plus lessons that we've learned the hard way over the last 30 years. And so at the end of every chapter, we summarize them, we bullet point them, and we give them out. And the reason I think this is important is because this is what I call the low-hanging fruit. This is what every entrepreneur can read and say, holy crap, I can actually not step in this shit, right? So my purpose is to get this out and to get it to as many entrepreneurs as possible. I think also the bigger idea, because I'm sure you're an entrepreneur that knows that so many people come up to you and say, I have an idea. Okay, great. But do the work. Go through the go gauge. Figure out if it works before you say, I have an idea. Everybody has ideas. The question is whether it should be greenlit, right? So those are my two reasons. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, all I would say is that we've picked up these cheat codes. They really help you deal with the fear and uncertainty and doubt that goes into entrepreneurship. How do you make better decisions based on our experience of making a lot of mistakes and get to the future faster so you too can live with the fear inside the hurricane and create a similar life to what we have, which means it's a life worth living and something that you look back and you're like, that was awesome, right? And so this is really our attempt and our love letter to entrepreneurs saying, we see you, we know you, here's what helped us, and nothing will make us happier if you can take one or two of the 50 cheat codes, get to the future that you want, and impact the world after you have some level of success. So that's really what I'm excited about at this point.
I love this. All right, my second last question comes from my son. He's 8 years old, Dejan. He's in grade 3, and he says, Dad, some of the stuff they're teaching I'm just not interested in. I don't understand like why. So his question is, what would be the best business advice you could give to an 8-year-old up-and-coming entrepreneur?
Too many entrepreneurs are constipated perfectionists. They never get started. They never launch. They're paralyzed by the fear of what others will think, the fear of not being good enough, the imposter syndrome, whatever is driving the decision not to launch. Launch something early, whether it's selling lemonade, whether it's building an AI app for your school. Do something. Because people don't care where you went to school, who you are. They care about how you make them feel and what you've done. No better time to do it when you're young and you don't have a mortgage and you don't have 3 kids and you don't have all the stuff that he sees. Like, let me just talk to your son. Like, you're fucking expensive, okay? Like, we got to feed you. We got to clothe you. You are going to have kids. And so you have to be in a position to kind of be as awesome of a dad as your pops has been and your mom has been. So just start now. Do something that you want to figure out what you want to exist in the world and make it exist no matter how small.
Cass? Man, Mike, that was great.
Well, going after that is hard, but I would say I agree, move forward, and any idea works. I sold barrettes, these ribbon barrettes in school. I used to make hundreds of dollars a year selling them. I also had a Christmas decorating business. All of these ideas that you can actually execute right? And like Mike said, not get constipated, not get, paralysis. Once you start doing it, you will start to build up your confidence. And one of the phrases we always say is like the order of your priorities determines the outcome of your business. And so that's like a big thing. So there's like the 1-2 punch, like start something and make sure you get it done. Right. And then I would say, lastly, to your son, don't ever think you're so small. Right. I don't care if you're only 8. I love everybody's opinion. I love every idea. You know what? Punch up, play bigger. And don't worry about it, because, if you can do something like Mike said, you execute it, that's how, and you make someone feel good. That's what they will remember.
Ooh, I love that. Last question. What can I do for you guys? Thank you so much for coming on, but what can I do for you?
You've already done it. I mean, Ryan, you got us on this show. We now know you. I hope we can stay connected. I love getting your DMs, and I love it. I appreciate you.
I'm a big connection person. I think if I like somebody, I think I'm a big energy person. I think if there's an innate vibe, I'm a weird duck. Like, I'll send voice messages, I'll send random shit. Like, I send it to weird people that are like, they got 5 million assistants. I'm like, I don't really give a shit. I got an idea, or I don't know. It's 2 a.m. Don't ever be offended. I don't say anything bad, but I'm just like, I don't know. I like connecting with people that are just weird, audacious, bold, nuts, crazy, but like their intentions are good.
I love that.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen.
All right, everybody, listen. Shoveling shit. Is this gonna come? Does this come literally with a shovel on every single book?
No, these are just the galleys. We put little shovels in there just to get people to remember it. I'm glad it's working.
Shovel sold separately. Get the book. I'm going to put all the links in the show notes, all that stuff. There's going to be tons of content that comes out around it. Get the book. And the reason I have to say I love the book is that this book is not glammed up. They are telling you real shit with real words, and it's very easy to understand. And it's coming from people that actually did the work, not read a book and talked about the book they read. Much love, everybody. Mike, Cass, it's been a complete pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. You're the best.